All right, so this is the second to last week, I suppose, of actual teaching for math. That last week we have Monday is a holiday, so Memorial Day, and then that Wednesday I think we have something different planned other than class. So we have 2 more weeks, which means we only have 4 more classes, guys. So hang in there. We're almost there. All right. So let's take a look at what is on your EDSB pages. So I put these in this morning. These are your 2 assignments for the week. So this is the one right here, the AA2 that we'll be working on today. All right. And then this is the one for Wednesday that will go along with the lesson. All right. So obviously, if you're here, you've already looked at your Zoom codes for this week. But what we're going to do is we'll just review a little bit of what we talked about last week with solving systems of equations by graphing. Then we're going to work on this in class. So hopefully we'll be able to get that done today before you leave. And then on Wednesday, we're going to have a lesson on special solutions to systems. So that will include, if you look at the guided notes here, that will include things like no solution systems and infinite solution systems. And we'll talk about how those occur in that lesson. And then we'll work on that in that IXL section. So those are your 2 assignments for the week. And you see them there. So when you're done with them, if you want to just upload a photo of or screenshot of completing that section to the 80% that each one will be worth, or 80, not percent, 80 smart score that each one will need. That will let me know that you've finished that, and I can then take a look at it on IXL. So let's take a look at this section and see how it works, because it works a little different than some of the other IXL sections that we've looked at. So again, what we were talking about last week in the worksheet that you did from Wednesday was graphing to solve systems. So what we were looking for is we were going to graph both lines and look to see where those lines crossed. Where the lines crossed is the point that makes both equations true, all right? Because each line represents all of the points for each equation. And so where they cross is the point where both are true, all right? So what we're going to look at here on this IXL section then is how it works and how we put in our answers. So to solve the system of equations by graphing, it says first graph the equations, then type the solution. So they give us 2 equations. So both of these are in slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b. All right. So we'll graph both of those, but let's talk about how we do that, because we've got 2 equations and it wants us to graph both. So if we were just graphing one, we would put the points that we need to make that line and it would create it for us. So if we scroll down a little bit, you'll see under the graph are those 2 equations in 2 different colors. All right, so what we need to do is go to the one that we want to graph. So it doesn't matter which one you graph first. I'll graph this one first. All right, so that is the y equals x plus 2. So in slope-intercept form, we always graph our second, or our intercept first. So the second number you see is your intercept, your y-intercept. So we're going to go to plus 2 on the y-axis. That would be our first point for that line. The second point we get from using the slope in that equation. Well, the slope here is not shown because there's no number in front of the x. That first number that comes in front of the x would be our slope. Well, since there's not a number shown there, that means that it is an understood coefficient of 1. It is 1x there, okay? So our slope is 1, or if we wrote that as a ratio, 1 over 1. So we would go up 1 over 1 to graph that line, right? And so that's our green line, that green equation, okay? Second one, now we'll click over here, because if we start trying to graph that without clicking on it, it's going to just change the points that we just put down for this green one. All right, so make sure you click on this now purple or blue line, whatever color that is exactly, I'm not sure. I think it's purple. So we go to the second number, right? So this is our y-intercept of -6. So we come down here to a -6 on our y-axis and put that point first, okay? Now, the second number that we go to use is slope. Slope is, in this case, -x or -1x. So our slope is -1, or if we wrote it as a ratio, -1/1. All right, so the -1 means that we are going to go down 1. The 1 on the bottom of -1/1 means that we are going to go right 1, a positive direction for that, okay? So that is our purple line. Now, what we're looking for is this point over here where they cross, right? So we're not done. Don't try and hit enter here until we actually type in our solution, okay? So our solution here is the point where they cross, and it is an XY coordinate, okay? So we are going to go on X, that's over here at -4, and down -2. So that is a -4, -2 solution, okay? So let me let a couple of people in who are waiting in the waiting room. All right, so any questions on that? All right, let me go to Toby real quick here. So Toby, what's your question?
How do you find the x?
What do you mean the x?
Like, so yeah, how it says y equals x plus 2.
Mm-hmm.
How would you find the x?
You mean the slope?
Yeah, the slope.
Well, the slope, if there's no number, right, how many x's are there? Well, there's one x there, right? So the number in front of that x is your slope. So the number, if there's not one shown, like in this case, there's not one shown in front of the x here. So it would be y equals 1x plus 2. All right, so the slope is 1 or 1/1. All right, and then over here, this one doesn't show a number, it just shows a negative, which again, same thing as over here, it's -1x, okay? So that slope would be -1/1. All right. That answer your question, Toby?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. All right, so let's go ahead and hit submit so we can take a look at another problem real quick. All right, so this one, again, slope-intercept form. All right, I'm not sure. I went through most of these, and I think they are pretty much up to where you're going into the 80s. Should almost all be in slope-intercept form. Keep in mind that if they are not in slope-intercept form, if they are in standard form, you will need to do what we did towards the end of the last unit, which is changing it into slope-intercept form, right? Solve that standard form for y, okay? So you may need to refer back to notes on that if you run across it, but I think as I went through this section myself, pretty much every problem I got up through 80 SMART score was in slope-intercept form, all right? But in order to graph to solve, we do need these in slope-intercept form. So for this first problem, right, let's come down here so we can see the different colored ones. So there's the green one. So slope-intercept form, all right, what is our intercept? All right, anybody? What's our y-intercept here for this green equation? Send me a chat message, send me a raise a hand. All right, there's Trevor. Trevor, what's our intercept for that green equation?
I have a question.
What's that?
I have a question.
Yeah, what's the question?
How do I do this again?
Well, that's what we're.
I was in the bathroom and so I had to use the restroom. So.
All right, so that we're going over this again. So
Okay.
we'll get hopefully get that question answered here.
Okay.
All right, so let's see. So Asher says that our y-intercept for that one is +1, and that is correct. So our y-axis there, right, that second number, this is slope intercept. So the first number is slope, second number is our y-intercept. So that +1 will go there. All right, and this is a 2/3 slope, or a 2 to 3 slope, meaning that we have a +2 and a +3 as our numbers for our rise and run. So our rise is +2, so we're going to go up 2, and then run is +3, so we're going to go right 3. All right, so up 2, right 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. That should be our line. We can double check if we needed to go the opposite direction. We would go down and left. So down 2 and left 3 would also put a point on that line if we chose to go that way. Okay, so slope can work either direction. Now here, once we've got that line graphed, all right, the good thing about IXL is we don't have to graph multiple points. We just have to get the 2 and it'll draw the line for us. So here on this one, what is our y-intercept for this equation? Let's come back to Trevor now that we've talked about that one. So Trevor, what would our y-intercept for this purple equation be?
Y-intercept, you said?
Yes.
-1/3.
That's our slope.
I
Remember,
mean, -2.
intercept.
-2.
Right, -2. So we're going to come down here to -2. All
Mhm.
right. And then the slope is -1/3, right? Slope intercept.
So you go down 1 and right 3.
Okay, so down 1 and right 3 times. All right, so that's our 2 graphed lines. Now what we're
Okay.
looking for, thank you, Trevor.
Mm-hmm.
What we're looking for here is where they cross. So we're looking at that point where they cross for our solution. So we'll scroll down a little bit more to get to our solution there. And our solution is a XY coordinate point. So this is from 0, 0 is over 1, 2, 3. That's -3 there for X. And then down 1, that's -1 for Y. So -3 for X and -1 for Y. All right. Any questions on that process at all? All right. So these don't really get significantly harder or more difficult. As long as you have an understanding of how to graph, these should go fairly quickly. So I'll just do this one real quick. So +6, slope of 1 there on the 1x. All right, so up 1 over 1. And then a +2 intercept here. Slope of -1/3 again, so down 1, right 3. And there is our point where they cross at, that's -3 for X and +3 for Y. So -3, 3. Okay, questions on this process? All right, so same as what we were doing on Wednesday, we're just now doing it on IXL. All right, make sure that you're getting switching between these. All right, some of the frustration I see when I've seen kids do this in class is they'll forget to click on the orange and they wind up changing the point they just graphed. If it looks like it's not crossing through, like let's say for example I did this one wrong. Let's say I made instead of -1/3 I did like up 1 and right 3, right? I'm going to get a point over here, but that point isn't actually going to be my correct solution, okay? And you do have to have the correct graph for these as well as the correct solution, okay? So even if you get the solution right, if you've got the graph wrong, it will count you wrong, okay? So make sure you get both graphs right so that you can get the correct solution. And let's say, for example, you had something like, let's say you made some mistake and you don't see anywhere they cross. well, that's not going to be correct. You've made some mistake in the graphing. Or if you graphed a point or one of them correctly, but maybe not completely correct, right? You graphed the intercept right, but you did down 1 and right 2 instead of right 3. See how it doesn't cross at a point we can recognize? That means you've made a mistake, right? On IXL, these are all going to be integer values like this, where you'll be able to recognize the point where they cross, okay? So if you don't see a point where they cross, if you can't recognize it, if it's a fractional value or they don't cross at all, then you have probably made some mistake in graphing one of the two equations, all right? All right, any questions before we go to groups here? All right, well, let me stop share on that for a moment, and we will get split up into groups and we'll work on this. So hopefully you can get this done before you leave class then. So let's do 2 breakout rooms again. Let's see. Oops, stop that. Let me get 2 rooms. All right, so Miss Carrie, I am going to have you with, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I believe.
Okay.
Just double check that. Yeah, I believe 5. I think that's that one. And then as normal, I'll take the rest here. So, all right, so guys, we're working on AA2. If you haven't already started, I would go ahead and get started. And you were looking for an 80 or higher SMART score, all right? So see you in the rooms. Hey guys, so how are we doing in here? We got any questions or are we doing all right?
I'm quite confused.
Okay, on what in particular?
On just this, like in general.
Okay, so you know how to work this though by clicking between the different equations at the bottom down there?
Yeah.
Okay, so start with that one.
So I basically forgot all my general knowledge, I feel like.
Of how to graph, you mean?
Yeah.
So this is slope intercept, right? So you have
Mhm.
numbers in slope intercept usually. All right, this one has a couple of situations where you don't actually see the numbers, but they're there technically. So that +1 on that blue line, what does that mean?
It would, so wouldn't it be right one?
That second number is what? Is it the slope or is it the intercept?
The slope.
No, remember, the name says what each one is, right? It's slope intercept form.
Oh, okay, so then it would be the intercept.
So that whatever's being added or subtracted from X is your intercept, okay? So in that case, this is your y-intercept. So you would go to 1 on the y-axis, put a point there. All right, and then from there, you're going to use your slope to find another point. So the slope for that equation is what?
-1.
Yeah, so it's So it's -1 over 1, technically, right?
Mhm.
How would you get to a second point using that slope?
-1 left 1 or right? No, right 1.
Right 1. So you would go down 1, right 1.
Okay.
All right, so that's your first line. Now this one, do you have anything being added or subtracted to the x?
No.
Okay, so technically what's being added is nothing, right? 0. So your y-intercept would be at,
0.
yeah. Okay,
So then I would go down 4, right 3.
yep.
Okay.
You went right 4.
So,
All
so
right.
then that would be the intercept.
Yeah, so where they're crossing, that's the point that you want. So that point is,
-3, 4.
yep.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
I need help.
All right. What do you got?
I'm gonna share screen.
Yep.
Alright. How do I do the negative x?
All right. Remember that number, if it's not showing you a number in front, technically it's a 1, right?
Okay.
So that's a -1 technically there.
So -1 over 1
Well, you got to, where's your intercept first?
right here.
Yeah.
So go down 1, then right 1.
Yep.
Okay. So what would the solution be for that one?
Well, you got to graph the second line.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
So go click on the blue.
Okay.
What? Careful. Go back to the orange. This is what
Oh,
I was talking about. Make sure that you click on the,
oh shoot.
now you're, there you go.
Okay.
Now click on the blue. There you go.
Okay.
All right. So now your solution is where they cross.
Right here.
Okay. And what is that point?
4.
The XY value there.
That's, yeah. So what would the x be?
Well, what is the X value at that point?
4.
Okay. And what's the Y value there?
0.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
I have another question.
Yeah. Go ahead.
So when it crosses and it's not on an exact point. So does that mean I did something wrong?
Yeah, let me take a look at what you got here. So your blue line looks, no. Your blue line has a, see how it goes down as you go left to right? You've got
Yeah.
a negative slope on that line. So your intercept is fine where it is, but you should, instead of going, it looks like you went up and left,
Mhm.
right? You should go up and right. They're both positive.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Need help again.
Okay, go ahead.
Did I do something wrong? Feel like I did.
Yes, somewhere, because they shouldn't be parallel.
Yeah.
So, let me look at the purple one first. The purple one looks fine.
Okay.
What is he doing?
Yeah, your purple was fine. So, Cassidy,
Oh, sorry.
it's okay. So the green one, go to the green one.
Okay.
All right, so
I'm here.
step there.
-1.
Okay. And your slope is 2 or 2 over 1, right?
Right. So 1, 2,
And you went up too far.
right here.
Yeah. And over 1.
So 5.
So that's your point. What is that one?
X. 5.
Well, what's your x value at that point?
Oh, I thought that was mine. I don't know.
So how far over on x is that value?
5.
That's your y value there.
Oh. I don't know. I'm kind of confused.
So count right. How far over right are you going on the x coordinate?
1.
No, where are those lines?
I mean, 2.
Not 2. Right? If you went to the x value first of that point, where are you going?
Right here.
No. So from
I'm
0,
confused.
0, right?
Mm-hmm.
Start at 0, 0.
Okay.
Point where those lines are crossing. Go right until you get to that place. What is that?
3.
Okay, so that is 3. 5 is your point.
Oh. Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. So that x equals -4 is going to be a vertical line from there.
So right here,
So any point along there will work.
like that.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.